Welcome. I am so excited that you guys are here. This is our Kitchen's Essential 101 video. It's for our Prep For It 6-week startup course. And you know why I'm glad that you're here? Because you have had that aha moment. Not just a moment of clarity, but an aha moment. And you know what I'm talking about if you read the What's Eating You book. So you're here because you might be a novice, you might feel a little uncomfortable in the kitchen, and that's what I'm here to help you with today. We're going to go over some of the equipment, some of the tools that you might need in the kitchen. We're going to touch on some of the seasonings, what's really essential to have in the kitchen, and then I'm going to show you a few basic techniques that are going to help you from becoming a novice to an expert in the kitchen. I want you to be successful. I want you to be able to get in your kitchen and get your foods prepped for the week within 2 hours if you can. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go over some of these tools with you, and we're going to have a great time kind of getting our feeling and getting familiar with the kitchen. You with me? Let's go. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with some of our tools and some of the tools of the trade that I like to call them. I have several different pieces of equipment here. I'm going to just kind of start picking them up, explaining what they do, and just some variations to a few of these things. I'm going to start off, honestly, I'm going to start off with what we like to call our chef's knife. There are different types of knives that you can get. You choose the one that's going to be economical for you, but that's still going to cut really well. We use a steel to actually sharpen the knife, which I'm not going to do today because my knife is actually very sharp. And this is an actual tool that's very essential because it's harder when you start having to cut and you're having to cut through and slice through meat. It's actually ruining some of the meat texture. So it's very important to keep a very sharp knife in your tool chest. We're going to hit the whisk next. The whisk is something that's going to help you to keep everything light, fluffy. If you're making the frittata or if you're making an egg omelet or something like that, a whisk is definitely essential. When you do the dredging for the fish and the chicken, this is going to be something you can utilize at that time. And then, of course, just our wooden spoons. This is actually my favorite, is the one that's actually squared off. When we use it in our porcelain pot, it works really well. It gets all those little corners and crevices that go around that. And then these guys, you can purchase these very easily for just a couple of dollars at the store. Tongs, I cannot live without my tongs. These are things that you can use to pull your braising stuff out of your pot. This is what you can use to kind of stir your vegetables in your mixing bowl. It's just a very versatile tool. If you don't have at least 2 or 3 of these, I would highly suggest having at least 2 or 3 of these so that you can kind of use them as you go. Now, I have an actual peeler, but there's several different peelers I want to show you. So this particular one is just a basic peeler. It's going to actually peel off the stuff that's on the outside of the carrot or the sweet potatoes, things like that. But I like this one. This one actually can do noodles. It can actually do just the paring, and it can actually do the peeling. So it's just a cool little gadget that I like. Sometimes you need to go out on a limb and you need to get something like this. Now, I really probably can use this for like a watermelon or something, but I thought it was really cool and I had to get it. Anyway, okay. This is actually a zoodler, or it zoodles your zucchini, your carrots, squash. It's an amazing little tool. You just basically turn your vegetable in it and it works really well. So you definitely, if you can have something similar to this in the kitchen, that would be fabulous. Now we also have some measuring spoons. You're going to need these. These are very, very inexpensive options. You want at least the set, okay, because you want to have you want to be prepared so that you are proactively planning. The other thing that's like one of my go-tos is actually a vegetable scraper. Now this guy, game changer. Really, when you've chopped a lot of vegetables, like for our bolognese, and you've got your carrots and your onions all cut up, and you're trying to get all of that over into your pot, you simply scrape it up. It actually holds it. You can push it in. Wonderful tool. I want you to know that I got this, the tongs, and the whisk at the dollar store. And I just wanted to show you that you do not need to break the bank to be proactive in getting in the kitchen and doing your prepping each week. A couple of other things. This is just a cheese grater. You can mince with it, you can grate, and then you can actually just cut like slices. I usually use it just for the grating, but it works well. very inexpensive as well. And then you have measuring cups. This is for your dry ingredients, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we go into our recipes, and I'm going to talk about the difference between this and actually a measuring cup. A couple other things, and I think we're going to be finished here. This is actually a mincer or a zester. This part can kind of mince. It's kind of real sharp when I touch it. This actually will cause like a zesting. We'll actually use this tool when we zest our lime and lemon. But I also have another, this is a very inexpensive option, and then I have one that is pretty darn cool. I can never get this thing to open up the right way. I always forget it. I don't remember how to open it up. Usually I use my inexpensive option because it just works great. The last thing I just want to go over is, and you would think, why has Kelly got an ice cream scoop in her hand? No, that's not because we're going to eat ice cream after we prep. I actually love this little fella because we core out our butternut squash with it, our acorn squash, all of those things that have all those seeds and all of those little, fibers inside. This is a game changer. So if you've got some of this already, wonderful. If you don't, just try to find something that's going to be a good kind of middle of the road version. But again, if you're strapped for money, these guys will certainly do the trick. The only thing I have left on my cutting board to show you, and cutting board is an essential thing too, is just a juicer. And you can juice very easily. You can juice just by squeezing the half of a lemon or a lime. But if you really want to get all of it out of the pulp and stuff, we'll show you how to use that later on. All right, so that pretty much does it as far as our tools are concerned. Let's move on because I have some of the bigger items that I want to show you, okay? All right, we have a few other things that I wanted to show you before we get into seasonings and some of our techniques. So to me, this is one of my most favorite tools to utilize, and that is a porcelain coated cast iron Dutch oven. It is a little bit of an investment, but it makes cleanup so much easier. And so what I've got here is just a basic, I think we picked this up at one of the larger stores like the box stores. It works really great. The porcelain protects, the coating protects from getting it to stick and stuff like that. I will tell you that you want to use the wooden tools on these guys because you want to keep them, you don't want to use the metal on them if you can help it. And you just, when you're stirring, it does help it when you're using the metal, the wood. You saw me pull this out. This is another nifty little tool. This is actually a grease screen. It protects you from having to like dodge all of the grease bullets when you're trying to braise your food. Again, I picked this up at the dollar store. So again, if you feel like this is so much, Kelly, I don't know if I can do all this, I purchased like 5 or 6 different items for less than $10 at the Dollar Tree to show you that it is affordable and that you can do it. Measuring cups, I think there's different sizes. Obviously, this is a bigger cup, but you want a measuring cup. This is going to be for your wet ingredients. Very important. This is a slotted or a kind of like a screen spoon or a ladle. This is wonderful when we are parboiling, and you're going to see that technique a little bit later on in the video. And this is amazing because it just, you pick them up out of the water, it drains it very easily, and then you can transfer it over into your dish. So I really like this tool a whole lot. And then of course you do need to get some kind of strainer. It does not have to be this like, oh, I need a $40 strainer. No, you don't. Something very basic will do the trick. You also want to have a saucepan. This is a pretty heavy saucepan, but just something that's going to actually, that you can do, cook down some either gravies or sauces or things like that. You can also do a lot of our cauliflower rice, our pilafs and things like that in this type of pot. And then of course we have skillets. I have a skillet right over here. When you're doing like your egg roll in a bowl and things like that. Even when you want to do some of your like catfish fillets or your salmon fillets or something like that and you want them a little bit crispier, this is a perfect option for you to use. So I think I covered some of the things that are the bigger items. I'm going to show you a few extra things that I think are game changers when you want to get in and out of the kitchen in 2 hours. So hang on, I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab a few more things. So another thing that I think is just a huge game changer in the kitchen for me, it does allow me to get in and out of the kitchen and do all of my prepping. That's 5 mains and 5 sides within 2 hours are these 3 guys. The aluminum pans, huge deal for me. I can actually stir in all of my ingredients, my oil, my garlic, all that stuff in the pan. I can actually put that in the oven, cook it in the same thing that I mixed it in, and then I can throw it away or recycle it if I need to. And so it's just something to really, it's one of those essentials that are really awesome to have in the kitchen. The other thing that I think is very important, and it really helps out a lot, is parchment paper. It's a little bit different than aluminum foil. It's a little bit different than wax paper. You want parchment paper on your team. Why? Because when you use cookie sheets, you're gonna put this on top of the cookie sheets. When you do your chicken wings, this is gonna go on your cookie sheet. You're gonna put your wings on top, then you just fold it up and toss it. It is amazing. It stops things from burning on the bottom. Really great tool to have. The other thing that I use a lot is aluminum foil. When you go to cook certain things like your sausage and peppers and some of your chicken dishes, you're gonna cover your aluminum pan first so that it can get some internal cooking done first, and then you're just gonna remove that aluminum foil so that it can brown toward the end of the cooking process. The other thing is that if you decide to store in these guys instead of throwing it away and you just wanna store in this, then you just take that same aluminum foil, put it back over, you put it in the refrigerator, bada bing, bada boom, and you're done. So these 3 particular items are game changers when it comes to getting in and out of the kitchen in 2 hours or less. So, you know what? I want to spice things up a little bit, don't you think? All right, let's talk seasonings next. All right, you ready to talk some seasonings? Now, I know that this looks like a lot of seasonings and that doesn't seem very essential. But over the course of 6 weeks, you're going to be utilizing most of these ingredients to some extent. Now, I will tell you that a lot of these guys you can get at wholesale stores and places like that. But you know what? You can also get them at some of the discount stores as well. And you can get affordable seasonings that taste just as good. All right, so we're going to start from the back and then we're going to work our way up to the front, all right? So I like the chili sauce. I love the sriracha. I use these for a lot of our Asian dishes that we have, including the egg roll in a bowl, things like that. This is very inexpensive and it lasts, obviously as big as it is, it lasts forever. And then of course we have the tamari. Now tamari is kind of a healthier version of soy sauce. It's more organic. It's actually brewed, so it takes some of the toxins that you might see in soy sauce out. So if you're trying to avoid some things that can upset your stomach, or you know you're trying to do a Whole30 or a paleo type of eating plan, this is what you're going to look for versus just a plain soy sauce. This right here, you're going to go through bottles and bottles and bottles of this. I use olive oil for a lot of the things that I do. So some of my Asian dishes, I'll use the sesame oil, but I still use a little bit of olive oil just to get the ball rolling. So you're going to really need to have a good quality olive oil on standby. Bay leaves, we use this in our spaghettis, in our stews, in our cacciatore and things like that. Again, I've got a really big container, but you don't need that. You can get one that's got like 10 leaves in it and you'll be just fine with that. Some other things that we have here, we have our chili powder. So when you're doing the actual chili, when you're doing some of those more Latino or Hispanic dishes, this is going to be a really good option to go with. I use it sparingly because it's very strong, but you can find that very inexpensively as well. This is cooking sherry. It is optional. You do not need to cook with cooking sherry. If you use chicken broth or beef broth, you're going to do just great. It does add another level of flavor, but it also adds a few calories. So again, sparingly. And then of course we have things like the Italian seasoning. You know, you could buy the basil, you could buy the oregano, you could buy the thyme, but why? Just buy it all together and you're going to use it. And let me tell you something, this is also something for me that's a game changer for your sausage and peppers, your chicken cacciatore, your bolognese. This is going to be very, very helpful. Some other things that we use, apple cider vinegar. When you do some of your dressings, your seasonings, your marinades, you're going to be using this. We do have our cumin, our garlic. This is granulated. I love granulated garlic. If you can avoid garlic powder and just go with granulated, that in and of itself would be a game changer, okay? I feel like it holds on to the vegetables and it holds on to some of the meat and stuff a lot better. Cumin's one of those things that my husband loves. It's one of those things that goes in like guacamole, and it goes in some of your Mexican dishes and things like that. Again, it's strong, so you use it sparingly. And then I have a couple of things that we will put in some of our Asian and even our Moroccan dishes. The garam masala seasoning, this is something you're going to use closer to week 5 or 6, so don't buy it right away. But this is a really great one that's got kind of a cinnamon kind of cardamom taste. Really good for your stuffed peppers. It just makes it amazing. Organic ketchup, you can buy any type of brand. That's going to work really good. Also have some ground ginger, but I personally prefer fresh ginger to ground ginger, just because I think it just brings just such a boldness and a crispness and a little spiciness to the dish. And then turmeric, we've got a couple of dishes with turmeric. This is it's kind of starting to come around. You know how things just have it's like a hot topic? Turmeric is one of those things that actually go really good, and it brings a lot of color to a dish as well. Worcestershire sauce, this is something that you can use to kind of actually color a dish a little bit, but it does add another layer of flavor. I use this sometimes with our peppers, sometimes with the, even a chicken cacciatore will work well, or even the Korean tacos on the lettuce wraps. That works really good. Now, this is fermented chili paste. You can get regular chili paste, but this is fermented. Any brand is great, but I do love this particular brand. It's really good for your Korean dishes. It's really good to add another layer of flavor. It is spicy, so we do need to use it a little sparingly. I think one of my favorite out of all of this, sesame oil is one of my favorite condiments and seasonings. It is just, and I love the roasted sesame oil. It just adds a whole nother layer of flavor to your dish, and you can just take, and you can actually even use it, kind of even garnish your dish. Like, so if you're eating your egg roll in a bowl and you want to just hit it with a little bit, it's perfect, and it's just so awesome. And then one of the last things that I have actually to go over with you is, this is just an actual combination of sesame seed, kind of broken up into little pieces. Sesame, and seaweed, and seaweed's broken up into little pieces. And this is really awesome as a garnish on your egg roll in a bowl. It's really good for your combination fried rice, and it's wonderful on that miso dish, that miso tuna dish. It really adds that nice, beautiful touch. So I think we've covered pretty much some of the condiments, and I think you're gonna, no, I don't think we did, huh? Yep. What did we forget? Salt and pepper. You are going to be using a lot of salt and pepper. It is one of the basics that you're going to be using. And I have a little dish that I use that I can just grab and just sprinkle as I go, divide it into the pepper and the salt. I do like to use sea salt, and I like a coarse sea salt. I like to be able to see the salt that I'm putting in a dish so that I can make sure I'm not using too much, but just enough. So, okay, that covers it. So I think probably at this point, I think it's time for us to get our feet wet and to get in the kitchen and start doing some techniques. What do you think? You're ready for this. Come on, let's go do it. All right, so one of the first techniques that we're going to go over, and I think this is probably the most important because we use onions in almost every dish, is I'm going to teach you how to actually chop an onion. So if you've done this before, great. If you haven't, then stay tuned and let's do this. Now, of course, we're using a very sharp chef's knife, so you need to be very careful. I always tell people about the claw. Whenever you hold anything and you're actually going to chop or cut, you want to hold it like this. When you put your fingers out like this, we might be actually chopping some additional things when we do that. All right, so the easiest thing to do here is that we're going to go ahead and actually cut the back part off. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to cut the other side, or the root side, off, and that's going to leave you with an onion that looks something like this. Once you do that, then you're going to take your knife and very easily you're going to actually cut that outside layer of the onion off, okay? Now, it takes a little while. You just have to kind of put your finger through it, and then you're going to see that this is going to come off much like this. And I mean, sometimes it's good to have all of it. Sometimes it's good to, if you have this outside layer, that's fine. But, for purposes of this, just take off what's going to make it even and nice. Once you do that, you're going to cut it in half, okay? And then you're going to put one half aside. You're going to keep your half here. And then you're going to do just straight cuts all the way down. Remember, claw. So I'm going to put my fingers down. Once I do that, then I'm going to actually cut into the onion at a parallel to the board, okay? This is a very sharp knife. Be very, very careful. You don't need to cut all the way through the onion. You want to cut almost till about a ½ inch of the onion. Once you do that, then it's simply a matter of cutting through it like this. Now when you cut, if you notice, I'm kind of leaning forward with my cut. I'm still using my claw. And then when I have this last little piece, which I didn't cut into, I'm going to simply cut it like this. All right. Now, remember I told you about that really nifty tool that I absolutely love? Our vegetable scraper, super easy to use. We're going to scoop all this up and we're going to put it in our mixing bowl. By the way, getting a few of these will definitely be nice as well. I like to mix in the aluminum pans because it's actually, you're not dirtying quite as much, but these can be very helpful, like when you're doing the chicken wings and things like that. So that's pretty much how to cut an onion. We'll cut the other half if you want to, but I think you got it. So the next thing we're going to work on is we're going to actually show you how to peel a carrot. You want to take this skin off of the carrot. I mean, this is actually what was actually in the ground, even though they cleaned it up and it looks great. You don't want all this. So you want to actually peel that off first, and then you can either chop it or we can even zoodle it or make little small, little fine pieces of carrot. So we're kind of going to do a little bit of both. You're going to take your peeler, you're just going to go away from your hands, and you're just going to peel just like this, turning the carrot as you go. It's pretty easy. It's kind of a little therapeutic, you know? You just sit here, you just kind of peeling the skin off the carrot, just thinking about life, you know. All right, so once you do that, you're going to use your knife and you're going to cut that back end of the carrot, what was actually in the ground, and I'm just going to remove that. I'm also going to remove the top of the carrot. Now I'm going to cut this carrot in half, and one half of the carrot I'm actually going to cut into cubes, and then the other half we might play around with. Cut the carrot actually in half, and then you're going to cut it again so that you're going to have 4 pieces. Now you can cut it a little bit more than that, but that usually works for me. Once you do that, then you're just simply going to cut small pieces as you go. Now, obviously, when we get to the bigger end of the carrot, the pieces could be bigger. So then you just cut your pieces a little bit thinner so that they can all cook at the same rate. Now remember, I'm using the claw, okay? So that we don't lose any appendages in prepping. And so that's just kind of a chopped or cut carrot. And again, if you wanted to cut it in 1/8 instead of 4ths, you can do that, okay? Now, the other thing that you can do is you can actually take your little zoodle and you can actually hold your carrot and you can do like this. And I'm going to do a few of these and I'm going to show you what it looks like. And it's almost like when you are actually peeling the carrot. And then what you wind up getting is you wind up getting these nice little shredded pieces that are really great in your miso tuna. They're also really good on top of like maybe your Korean lettuce wraps or something like that. So it's really a great option. So you know how to at least chop a carrot. You know how to at least make some of the little hay or some of the little noodles with the carrots. We're going to move on to our next technique so that we can get you in and out of your video essentials videos in a reasonable time. All right, let's move on to the next task. So I'm going to actually show you a technique that can be very daunting and a little intimidating, but it's not hard at all. You've seen these guys at the grocery store. It's your butternut squash. You're like, what do they use that for? This is actually a really great squash product. I love to roast it in the oven. It brings out the sweetness of the product. And this can sit on your shelf or, you know, on the kitchen counter for actually a month or 2, and it never goes bad. It takes a really long time for these to go bad. They shouldn't. You should be eating it. All right, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to teach you how to peel. I'm going to teach you how to peel, I'm going to teach you how to core, and then I'm going to cube the butternut squash. Now, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to use the peeler that we use for the carrots. Now, this may take actually a few turns to actually get all of the skin off of the butternut, okay? Again, very therapeutic. So you're just going to kind of go around. You're going to catch that first layer, and you see how you can see some of the white still? It's not orange yet. All right, you see what we're seeing now? Right, that is where we want to get. We want to get to the really good, pretty orange color, okay? So we're going to continue to do this. It's like you're opening up a present, but it just takes you a really little while to get there, but you still get to a great, great surprise underneath. All right, there you go. That's pretty much a great product, a good finished product. All right, so the next thing what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start cutting it in half so that we can core it, okay? So I actually like to cut the top off. You're going to have to push down on your knife, and you see how pretty that inside is? That's when you know you really got the good stuff. I might actually peel this one a little bit more because I want to try to get rid of just a little bit more of this white, which this actually makes it a little bit easier to do. But you can see how beautiful the inside of this butternut is. It just really is so vibrant. And you know that that's got to be good for you because look at the color. It's just got to be good for you, right? All right, almost done here. Got one more layer to kind of take off. There we go. All right. All right, so now that we've got all that off, we're going to actually cut it in half, okay? So I'm going to actually take the bottom off so that I can make it even. And you'll notice this is where all those seeds and all those fibers are, okay? Once we do that, you can either stand it up and cut down, or you can lay it sideways. I actually like to cut down like this because I want it to be evenly halved, okay? But look at how easy that was to cut through it once you took all that hard skin off. Now, once I open it up, you're going to see that you see this nice, pretty flesh in here. This is gorgeous. This is going to be so yummy when it's roasted and cooked. But you got to deal with all these seeds and all this stuff. Here's where your ice cream scooper comes in. What you're going to do is you're going to take your ice cream scooper and you're just going to take it like this, and you're literally going to turn it inside, and you can hear it. It's kind of like scraping away all of that stuff that's not really going to be very tasty to eat. And there you go. That was really easy to do. This tool is not just for ice cream, guys. So once you get this cut and done, what you're going to do is you're going to cut it, then you're going to cube it, okay? So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut it like this. And notice that I'm putting my hand here because this is a very firm vegetable. And so we don't want our hands getting in the way. So if I put it on the top of the knife, it's going to help to create counter pressure, but it's also going to keep your hand out of the way. And then once we do that, then we're going to simply cube our squash. And we'll do the rest of this so that you can just get an idea what it's going to look like. Now, a lot of these are, you can actually go to the store nowadays, and a lot of the grocers and the producers are starting to actually cut these for you. It's great when you're in a hurry. When you don't have time to do all of this and you just want it ready, it's perfect. They're charging you a whole lot more though. So if you don't mind the extra work, you can actually get it for a lot less cost. So we're going to finish this up and we're going to get ready for our next technique. So what is it? Parboiling sounds like something out of a scary movie, but it really is nothing scary about saving time in the kitchen. Parboiling allows you to pre-cook your firmer veggies, and it really reduces your roasting and caramelizing times. It's a brief step that saves a whole lot of time on the back end. First, you're going to boil your water over the stove. You just want to make sure to add that salt to the water because remember, we're layering the flavor. And then we're going to transfer those veggies like we just did. Now we're going to boil these for about 3 to 5 minutes, and you want to keep that vibrant color like you see here, but you want those veggies to be nice and soft because they're going to be soft in the inside and they're going to be nice and crispy when you finally get to roast them. Now you're going to transfer them into a strainer so you can drain all that water from them, and then you'll go to the mixing bowl from here, and that's it. You're keeping all the nutrients, but you're getting so much flavor, and it's just going to be an amazing roasting product. Braising is another pre-cooking technique that creates a crunchy seal on the outside of your meat that you're cooking to allow that meat's natural juices to stay locked in. Now you start generously seasoning the meat with salt, pepper, and of course any of the seasonings that the recipe called for, and then you're going to make sure to have a lot of good olive oil into that high, medium, high Dutch oven. Now you want to make sure the pot's pretty hot. You're going to place that meat in, transfer the meat into that pot, and you're going to brown it on all sides. This is going to take about 3 to 5 minutes on each side. Once that happens, you're going to start transferring it into the vessel that you're going to be cooking into. Now, once you do this, what you're going to notice is you're going to have a lot of this crusty stuff at the bottom of the pan. And you're like, I don't want to clean that. Well, add that chicken broth or beef broth to the pot, and then you're just going to release all of the things that are actually crusted on the bottom, and you're going to cook that sauce down maybe for about 3 to 5 more minutes. And what you're going to wind up with is this nice, dark, flavorful gravy that's going to be poured on top of that meat, and that's going to create another layer of flavor for you. And that's it. That's literally what braising is. And you did it. All right, welcome back. Okay, so what we're going to do next is a very easy technique, but I want to show you a little bit of a trick. So a lot of times you've seen this in actually the grocery, and it looks very weird. Well, this is actually a ginger root. So it's actually the root of a ginger plant, and it's obviously been cleaned and washed and all of that. So we're going to use just a small little toe of this, okay? And that's the part that we need to get to, but you got all this stuff that's actually in the way. Well, you can use your peeler, which we can do, but actually you can use a spoon and just do like this, and you can actually pull all of that stuff off of the ginger root. Now, obviously, using the peeler is also an option as well, but actually the spoon just did as good of a job, right? So we're going to get a small section. A lot of times you don't need quite this much, but for just the object lesson today, I'm going to use something a little bit larger. Okay, so I'm going to take this piece right here, and I'm going to show you how you would actually mince the ginger. We're going to use the smaller part of our little grater, and you're just going to kind of do it like this. And just go back and forth, and what you're going to find is all this yumminess on the underside of this. And then what you can do is you can actually knock it into your bowl like that, and you're going to see all of this in the bowl. Or you can actually use your spoon and you can actually scrape it off of the back as well. And so if they're telling you to use like a teaspoon or a full teaspoon of ginger, then you obviously are going to use your tablespoon, or your teaspoon for that, your measuring teaspoon. But if it's just saying put some fresh ginger or garnish with fresh ginger, then that's kind of what you're going to do. Now, if you want to just cut your ginger into small pieces, then obviously you can cut little slices. Sometimes when you're making your pho, then you can actually put some of these pieces just in whole, and that works really well. Okay, and then you can cut them like this, and that creates almost like a little manual mincing as well. Okay, so that's kind of your ginger, and we're going to kind of sidestep a little bit, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to move all this aside, and I'm going to show you how to do your garlic. Okay, so garlic actually comes in a clove, okay, and then you have toes on the clove, okay. So I've actually used some of these already. We're going to actually take one of these toes, okay, and we're going to cut. They'll say use one clove. This is actually, or the toe, this is actually one of those. Now I'm going to tell you that the easiest way to kind of pull this off is to take your knife, pop it a couple of times, and then this just peels right off. And it's just an easy way to kind of, instead of trying to peel it with a knife and all that, you just can kind of pop it really quick. Now, you can do the same thing when you want to mince. You can do bigger parts like this, and you can grate like this. You're going to see that you have it here. Or if you actually want to mince as well, you're going to do it on this side. And you're going to see all the juiciness, yumminess on the back side. And that's it. That's all you need to do when you're going to mince ginger or garlic in the recipes that we're going to do in the next 6 weeks. This is how you're going to do it. All right, let's work on our next technique. I think we're going to zest a lemon or something like that. Let's check it out. So when your recipe calls for juice of a lemon or juice of a lime, sometimes you're going to see that it says zest the lemon or lime first. In fact, in our tequila sunrise salmon, we have lime zest. And let me just tell you a little bit about zest. It's exactly what it means. It's zesty. It brings that extra layer of flavor to the dish. It's where all the essential oils for that citrus are located. And so you want to really capture some of that. So I have a lemon and a lime here. My preference is always the lime, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut our, well, actually we're not going to cut our lime. I'm jumping ahead. So we're going to zest it first. Okay. So what we're going to do, we take a washed lime, and then we're going to just take that same spot that we used for our ginger and for our garlic. We're going to actually use, and we're just going to do, now the difference between what we did with the garlic and the ginger and what we're doing with the lime is you have to be a little bit more careful because we don't want to get into the pulp of the citrus. So we're going to do this a couple of strokes. You see we still got some. And then you're just going to rotate your lime. And you're going to rotate. And once you've done all this all the way through, now you don't want to get really, and I'm going to kind of do this just so you can see, you don't want to get into the white. When you start doing that, you really want to back off because that's going to actually bring bitterness to the dish, and you don't want that. And so we're just going to do this, get a little bit of that zest here, and look at all, now remember, because we got some goodness on the back we need to catch, all that zest. It doesn't look like a lot, but that is going to add tremendous flavor to the dish. So when we say zest the lime, you're going to zest the entire lime. We're not doing that for just, sake of time. And then once it's completely zest, then we're going to cut it in half. Now, once you cut it in half, you obviously have seeds that you have to deal with. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. You can, now, there's a little trick that I use, and you can get one of these if you want, but it's not really necessary. I usually will take the lime and I will cut it in like sort of halfway down where it would almost look like you're making a flower. But what I'm doing is I'm making it easy to rotate the lime to actually squeeze it. So that when I rotate it, I'm actually turning it on itself, which makes actually squeezing it and getting all the juices out of it a lot easier. I don't know if you can see that, but it definitely makes a big difference. Now, you can use something like this, and this will get any of the seeds out, which it really doesn't look like it has any seeds in this one. The other option that you have is that you can just take your hand, and if clean hands, obviously, and you're going to squeeze that lime into your hand. And if there are any seeds, you're going to have the seeds in your hand, and then you can just discard them. And that's just an easy way to do it. So when we're calling for the zest and the juice of a lime, that's pretty much what you're going to do. I don't think that's too bad. All right, let's move on. It's avocado time. I love avocados. I eat them for breakfast in the morning. I love them as garnishes over chili or even for our carne verde or our chicken enchiladas. So it's really very versatile. I love just the flavor it brings, and it actually is a good fat. So when your provider or somebody like that says, your bad fats are very high and your good fats are very low, and they tell you to increase those good fats, this is one of the things that can do it. So we're going to show you basically how easy it is to really kind of slice the avocado in half, take the big seed that's located inside of it out, and then how we're going to actually cut it in the shell and then scoop it out with a spoon. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start, remember, we're going to do our claw. We're going to start by just slicing through the skin. Now I just rotate the actual avocado until I come full circle to where I started, and then I simply open it up like this. And you're going to have your two halves. So we'll wait on this one afterwards. I'm going to be very careful with this. I'm going to actually slice into the flesh, and I'll be getting a spoon, I believe, from my assistant. And then we're going to actually take this other half. Now this is a really cool thing about this. If you want to let out a little frustration, let's let it out on the seed. So you're going to take your knife, pop it into the seed like this. You're going to turn it, and that takes the seed out super, super easy. Once you do that, just push the seed away from you like this so that nobody gets hurt, okay? So we're going to cut this side. Again, little slices. If you don't want to cube it, then you would just leave your slices like this. So I'm going to show you kind of two versions of this. This is the one that we cubed. Once you've cut inside of it, then you're just simply going to take your spoon, scoop out into this between the flesh and the skin, and you're going to have some beautiful, beautiful cubes there. It's making me want to eat a little Mexican. And then if you want the slices, you're going to do the same thing, but you're just going to have to be a little bit more careful so that we don't mess those slices up in the process. And there we go. Super easy. And those slices look amazing. You can eat it for breakfast, you can have it for dinner, garnish. It works great. And you can even have it in chocolate pudding. We might show you that recipe one day. All right, let's move on to our next task. So we're going to actually we're just going to lightly blend and whisk this egg up for our wash. Some people will actually put either milk or cream even into this. It's not necessary though. Especially if you're looking at calories and everything like that, that's something you could avoid doing and you really wouldn't miss that part. And then of course, this is our final one. This is actually a mix that I found in a local supply store. It's actually got everything that would go on top of a bagel that's an everything bagel. And so that's what's going to form our crust. And what we're going to do is make sure that because we're doing these steps, this crust actually adheres to the fish and not to the pan. We want it on the fish. So let's go ahead and season the fish a little bit. Again, layer the flavor, right? So we're going to just layer this flavor a little bit here. All right, and then we're going to start dredging this. I'm going to go grab a plate real quick so that I can put my finished fish on the plate. So we're going to take our seasoned fish. I've also seasoned, remember, layer the flavor. We've actually put salt and pepper in here, and I've put salt in here. This already had pepper. So we're just going to dredge the fish, making sure it's coated well. Now, this can get very messy, so if you have a partner that can help, swell. But if not, if you want to try to just use one hand in the wet, it does make a difference. You want to pat this dry or pat it down so that it stays. And then that's one of our fish. And then we're just going to do this all the way through. Make sure that your fish, see, this is not all the way dry. We're going to dry this edge right there. Make sure your fish is very dry. Otherwise, this is going to be a difficult part of this procedure. All right, so we've actually learned quite a bit already. You've learned a little bit about your kitchen tools and some of the bigger supplies that you're going to need. We've learned a little bit about some spices, and we've even gone over some of the basic techniques. But before we leave today, I wanted to make sure that you knew some of those steps to help you successfully follow a recipe. And let me just tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, the recipe is there for a reason. So one of the first things I will tell you is I use an adage that a lot of carpenters use when they are building stuff. They will say, measure twice, cut once. Well, I want to take that and kind of change it up a little bit, and I want to say read twice, cook once. And that makes a world of difference. Before you go into the kitchen and you start prepping your meals, make sure you've read over everything and you're prepared for the job ahead. The next thing I want to say is that you need the right tools for the job. Now, we talked about all these great tools, but don't get in the middle of a recipe and realize, oh my gosh, I really needed that ice cream scooper or those tongs, and it affects the outcome of your recipe. Measuring tools are very important as well. We talked about the measuring cups versus the measuring scoops. Remember that your measuring cups are actually going to be for your wet ingredients, but the scoops are actually going to be for all your dry. That is very important because they don't equal out, believe it or not, they don't equal out the same way. Some other things is to make sure to prop your recipe up. You want to be able to have that easily referenced for you so that if you run into anything, you can just look over and see it. I oftentimes will actually use my cabinet door to put some recipes up if there's something new that I'm actually trying. Also, you want to make sure that all of your ingredients are there and ready for you. Now, that's one of the things we actually talk in the play-by-play. I tell you in the bullet points, make sure that you can take, let's say you take a bowl like this and you just put everything in that bowl and have it ready for that particular meal. That can work out really nice to help you get in and out of the kitchen in 2 hours or less. Some other things is you want to make sure that you allocate the right amount of time for the task. You know, we can watch a movie, takes about 2 hours. You go to a ball game, takes about 3.5. Well, guess what? Make sure that you allot the right amount of time. If you have somewhere to be in 1 hour and 15 minutes, you're not going to be ready for that, and it's going to make you stress in the kitchen, and your recipes could be affected. Some other things is make sure that you have everything in order, that you follow the steps. Think, follow the leader. I want to make sure that I'm following these steps exactly like they're telling me. There's a reason behind the madness. And then last but not least, please try not to substitute unless the person that wrote the recipe is giving you some additional recommendations. Unless there's some really big allergy or something you really need to avoid, stick with the recipe and you are going to have the best success. That pretty much wraps it up for our Kitchen Essentials 101 video. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad that you've come here because that to me tells me that you're ready to conquer this new course, and I'm so happy to see you do this and do this something for yourself. You have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you on our Prep For It website. You have a great day, and we'll see you soon.